been in and out of my mind. Need to talk to somebody through all the things that I can't find. Everything in slow motion, maybe I'm wrong or maybe I'm right. Both share the same fight. Conversations in the dark, finding ways to find light.
What's going on, y'all? It's Justin. We're here again at Conversations in the Dark, and today we're going to specifically focus on my healing journey.
Yes.
And what it's been like and what I've been through. And I'll just touch on two things that stand out as far as like me and my process of my healing journey. One thing being is I try to pull inspiration and knowledge from like everything and everybody around me. I ask a lot of questions just for that reason. You know, I like to get into the logic behind actions and decision making and stuff like that. That's like one of the things I focus on in my healing journey. Another thing would be, again, like I mentioned before, is just understanding like it's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to have it all figured out. And understand that everybody, even the people I look up to and hold to the highest regards, we're all learning as we go day by day and just trying to figuring out the best versions of ourselves. That makes sense?
That's a good.
So you guys got some questions for me or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a question. So you are like the king of keeping your peace.
Right.
So I want to know, like, how did you get to a point, like, in your healing journey when you realized that peace was something that you can establish, that you can create, and you can actually, like, live in?
Meeting more and more people not from my immediate background. You know what I mean? Living out of state, meeting people from different countries, different cultures, different backgrounds, and just understanding that my norm wasn't the real norm and it wasn't a healthy norm. There's too many things that I let go on in my life that I didn't have control over that affected me and my internal and my peace. There was too many variables that, like I said, I can't make that decision for people, how to treat me, how to react to me, how to respond to me. So you take that and you add it on top of also me not being an open person. So now I'm very more open, more vulnerable, more willing to share and just share more about myself, just because in order to learn me, I have to, make that a possibility.
Right.
So
Can you take us down memory lane to like a pivotal point where you're like, my peace is disturbed and this is how I'm operating within that, and I know that something needs to change, and kind of like what that moment, like that catalyst moment was?
I started to get used to being alone again. So just me being, again, I'm somebody who went to college away from home. So I got used to being alone. When I moved back, I was around a lot of people again. So I got back into an uncomfortable space. So just getting back alone and being by myself again, it kind of it was like a positive trigger in a way. Like, okay, I remember how this felt to be able to come home and knowing that nobody else is going to make a noise to tick me off based on just my day of what I just went through. Or if I wake up early in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, I can play my music as loud as I want to. This is whether I'm living with my parents or, whether I'm living with anybody, just sharing a space with somebody else. So just understanding that and learning that I want to be, in order to be the best version of myself to others, I have to first do that internally. And that was kind of my main focal point. It's like, okay, how do I be the best father? How do I be the best friend? How do I be the best coworker? How do I be the best spouse? Anything is like, okay, I have to be the right version of myself. Because what I was doing was I was trying to, when I'm dealing with you, I'm trying to be a good friend. When I'm dealing with you, I'm trying to be a good friend. When I'm dealing with somebody else, my kids, I'm trying to be the best father. So instead of making it one umbrella thing and a bunch of different subtopics, it was more so just me focusing on that in that moment, and then I'm on to the next, and I'm on to the next. So this way it's a little bit more structured,
right? If
that kind of makes sense.
So what made you want to be the best? Like, why did you desire to not just be,
not content?
Yeah.
I wanted to change my life. I wanted to change, I started to see a lot of myself in my son. And just, I remember, obviously we say the inner child of us, we look alike, we have the same mannerisms, we act alike. So I would just see him and it just made me conscious of like, damn, I remember how I felt growing up for all these years and not being able to feel complete before like 2 or 3 years ago. You know what I mean? So my main thing is to figure it out so I can instill these morals and intangible things into him so he doesn't have to deal with the things that I dealt with. Because I know the temptation and the paths I could have went down, and I wouldn't be sitting here with you guys right now. You know what I mean? So I don't even want to expose my son to that. I want to give him the tools early. First, I want to learn the tools so I can instill them into him so he can know how to navigate through the world.
Right.
Yeah, like I think So what I'm hearing here is that like one of the big catalysts for you was like the moment that you had your son, when you had your son, and then obviously probably moments throughout raising your son where you kind of saw him and you saw things in him, and you remember that specific moment even for yourself going through that same thing and how people responded to that, and you kind of wanting to shift maybe how he experiences people's responses to that. Can you give us an example of like one thing that you're doing with your son right now that's kind of a part of your own healing journey that you're kind of including into your parenting?
I can. So just the other day, I took him to see Spider-Man, right? And it was like it's like one of those moments like your kid's humbling you in ways that you would never expect, and they don't even realize what they're doing, right? So I take him to see Spider-Man. I drive about 30 minutes from Oakland to go to a specific theater because they have like the moving seats or whatever, right? And part of me was thinking about, okay, I asked him, I said, hey, do you want to go to a regular theater that's right by the house, or you rather go to the one where the seats move? But I know my son doesn't like roller coasters, right? He doesn't like heights. He's like super careful. I was the same way. So I remember being a child. So, okay, let me finish the story. So we go to see the Spider-Man. I drive out there. It was funny because we're at the buying the tickets, and I break $100 bill. My son being 7, Daddy, that's $100. He's so excited. I'm like, yeah. The shit was like $80 with the snacks and everything, right? Yeah. Because the tickets were like cheap. 20 a piece for because the seats move. So literally, we walk in the theater.
Some moving seats, y'all.
We walk in. Somebody's sitting in our seat, so they're getting up to move. Mind you, I'm holding all the stuff. As soon as he sits down, the seat jerks. He jumps up. Nope, I don't want to do it. I haven't even sat down yet. I have the popcorn, the drinks, and I'm so frustrated because I'm like, what do you mean? I'm scared. Mind you, we're sitting. This is a movie theater seat, but that's just how extreme my son is. So he's like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm like, you sure you don't want to just try it? He's like, nope. So I say what I have to say. I remember being a kid and being the same exact way, and I got so frustrated in that moment with him, and then he killed me because he says, Daddy, are you mad at me? And when he asked me that, it's like, nope. You know what I mean? Because I don't want him to. Because I immediately was just like, I just drove way out. You know, all these things, and he doesn't understand that. He doesn't. He's not, his thing is. So my whole thing was, okay, am I going to force him to stay in this uncomfortable situation just because I spent some gas and a couple more dollars? Or should I just go change the damn tickets out and get him a regular seat? And eventually I ended up doing that. But just little small things like that I remember doing as a child and knowing now as a parent how my mom would react to me when I would put her in those situations. I just tried not to react that same way with my kid. Sorry that was long-winded, but I just wanted to give like all the aspects to it.
No, and it's talking about like generational narratives that you're discovering about yourself and just behaviors around parenting, and that's important. That lets me know, like, you know, you have like a lot of self-awareness when it comes to like cycles that are repeated in behavior. So I mean, your son's going to be really great for that, and also you're just securing the fact that he can speak up for himself and like let people know when things don't make him comfortable, because I think that that's also a part of our healing journey is, you know, authentically using our voice even if it sounds like ridiculous or it's out of context or whatever. It's really not about like what other people's perception of you is. This is a teaching moment for me that, you know, you should really like own and value your voice in situations that make you uncomfortable. So I think that's a really great way of being. So I want to know some of the things that you've overcome that have taken your peace and have taken you on this journey to like really heal, to find peace of mind.
I would say, just to generalize it, it's just habits. You know, habits of, and when I say habits, it's you know, cycles in a bad way. You know, if it's every so often, it's pretty much doing things that I know I shouldn't be doing, and it doesn't have to be like, even if it's interacting with certain type people. You know what I mean? Again, it's just controlling the environments I'm putting myself in to control my peace, if that makes sense. Like I'm not gonna go to a certain person's house knowing that they have the ability to trigger me. You know what I mean? And if I am in that space, instead of responding, I just remove myself. Because again, you have somebody who's trying to understand and speak logically, but then the person might think I'm trying to attack them, and it's not always the case. I'm just trying to understand your perspective, and also at the same time, I'm not trying to justify my actions. I'm just giving you my perspective of why I made those decisions that I made. So I think that's kind of one of my main things with that.
So when you think of peace, like when you think of like balance, when you think of like harmony, when you think of like fulfillment, what do you feel like you've had to like learn about yourself in order to be able to like cross that thresholds between reacting and non-reacting? Like, so and I only ask this question because I know a lot of men get frustrated, right? Because frustration, anger, feeling overwhelmed are like three emotions that are acceptable, right? But like a lot of them are tailored through sports, right? Into passion or whatever. So for like men who have been conditioned to
That's
like,
a very good point. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh yeah, it's for men who
I was thinking about all the times when I was playing sports. Like, dang,
my
that
life
is
just
true.
flashed like before
and then,
my
and
whole
then
life.
and then I transfer those into. Oh man,
Yeah, no, that was good. That was deep right there. You didn't even realize it, but we both got. I was like, wait, hold on. I started thinking. But go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
It's actually like a technique and a tool that they came up with to fuel that way of being into something productive, but also entertaining at the same time. So they limit the ability to emotionally express, and then when men, self-actualize out of the arena, they're left with all these emotions but really can't label them, and maybe the sport isn't there to fuel that passion through. So that's where you get like a lot of domestic violence, a lot of blow-ups, a lot of emotional dysregulation. Like,
know what? That's interesting. You just took me back a little further because I feel like my relationship with basketball was the first thing in my life that I felt like I loved with everything in me that didn't love me back. It was like the very first thing that I felt. I don't want to say it was the first thing in my life that did, but it was the first thing I was aware of. I was like, well, damn, I devoted my whole life to this sport, and now I hate it. Now it's like a resentment to where it's like, yeah, my friends and everything were in the neighborhood playing and chilling, whatever, doing whatever they were doing. I had always had basketball practice, or always had football practice, or on the weekend I always had a game, or I was always out of state, which is, somebody would be like, damn, you're ungrateful. Like, that sounds like the life. But for me, that was all I knew. So when it got to the point where when the NBA dreams become less and less of a reality, it's a scary thing. But so yeah, when it came to me realizing like basketball, like, damn, I devoted my whole life to this one sport and I'm not getting anything back from it. It was like, wow, that was like one of my lowest points of my life, right? And then shortly after, it was like a relationship. So now I feel like I'm pouring all of this into a relationship, and now it's like, damn, I don't feel like it's reciprocated. And then at that point, I'm not able to vocalize that either. So now it's like a double negative, because not only am I feeling away, I'm not even giving my partner a fair shot because I'm not even expressing what I'm going through or how I'm feeling. So it's almost like a double-edged sword, right? And then you take that on top of, I have a son already, because I found out I was having my son my senior year in college. So it's like I have a son, I have a kid, and it's just, again, it goes back to those standards as a man, not even a black man, but just as a man, and wanting to lead but not knowing how to, not feeling comfortable enough, not feeling secure enough within myself to take those leaps of faith and do that. And now, to be honest with you, that's kind of why I got so triggered, is I almost feel like I replaced it with what I do now. You know what I mean? Like that, like you said, that passion of something that keeps my mind busy. It keeps me not focusing on those small little things.
I was actually going to ask, like, do you feel like you've crossed the threshold in your healing journey to heal from the relationship with basketball? That you feel like that's something that's still outstanding?
Bro, let me see. I stopped playing basketball in 2013 or 2013. So that's what, 8 years? 8 going on 9 years. I've literally played basketball, no exaggeration, probably 10 times in those 8 years.
So this is interesting to me, because I we've talked about it too. Like, we both shared hoop dreams at different points, and grew up in different parts of the Bay. But I asked that because I wonder about that even with more black men, right? Like, growing up as a kid, I only really ever saw, outside of my dad and my uncle, I only ever saw black men on TV.
As athletes, entertainers.
Playing, and being a basketball player was the A, B, C, D, all the way to Z plan. And when it came up like that wasn't gonna happen, it wasn't even close. I same thing. Like I stopped playing. I stopped going to the gym. I stopped engaging. I can think about on my hand like the last 10 years how many times I played too. And so now it has me wondering like how many black men go through that, whether it's basketball or football or less baseball. Brothers don't play baseball like that anymore. But like something else that they had their eyes on, their love of, despite all the things that they've been faced with in life, you know, who they are and what life tells them that they should be and what they should do or what they can't do, to then not have that dream realized, how much of that like do we actually heal from?
And it's scary before you go near. It's scary because it's like something that was once my sanctuary became a trigger for me. You feel me? It's like I used to go hoop to get away from everything else. Like that was again, I'm pouring my all into this to not deal with the other shit. Now I don't even have that. So why am I going to go play this for fun?
Right.
Because, and that's what made it worse for me is like once I got to the collegiate level, or I would say like high level high school, I started to realize the politics and shit involved. It's like the curtains were pulled back, and it's like it makes you.
It wasn't just about basketball.
Oh, it had little to do with basketball, particularly. It's just a big umbrella, and you know, kind of understand what I'm saying. And it got to the point where it's like I stopped respecting the game because I'm seeing all these people again that I hold to these high regards as far as whether they're playing or coaching. Like, bro, I had college teammates that couldn't read. You know what I mean? Like, but 3.5 GPA. You know what I mean? Like when I first got to college, I wanted to be an architectural engineer. That's what I wanted to go to school for. They straight up told me no.
You can't do it because they don't fit with your schedule.
Like, criminal justice. No, I don't want to go into, you know, that's just not what I want to do. I ended up falling into marketing and stuff, but it's just thinking about like going to college, learning all these small things. It's like, bruh, this shit is just as fake as everything else, you know, everything else that we deal with on the regular. So I think that is kind of where I stand with that. If that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And I mean, it kind of talks about how, you know, black men are tailored into these sports. And then they're kind of left with their vices, but they're really not supported. I have supported a client that actually like really his passion was football. And he didn't make it to the NFL. He played some arena football. But his wife doesn't understand why he rather like go play basketball or go play a sport than sit at home and like, you know, be with the family and be with the kids when he's stressed out. And I had to explain to her like, hey, you're like taking his medicine away from him. Like if this is what he utilizes to cope with his emotions and he hasn't had any skills or training outside of that, then you have to see it from his perspective. This is how he feels his emotion. This is how he processes his thoughts. This is how he stabilizes his mood. You can't just see it as just a sport. And I think that when she got an understanding of that, it wasn't just him trying to use escapism, which it was a little bit of escapism, but also it was literally how he learned how to process his emotions.
Why is escapism looked at as a bad thing? Not saying that you look at it as a bad thing, but
well, because it can be like you trying to avoid responsibility or like self-expression. I think for this particular couple's situation, they had a lot of issues with like communication. So like he would, you know, have a lot of feelings and a lot of thoughts, but go play a sport and then come back and then he's good. So the conversation couldn't really like be processed fully, and the behaviors didn't change because he would go play basketball, play football, then come back and then he's good.
Yeah, it doesn't address like the root cause.
Right.
Like that's what I think a lot about when I was a principal, and like a lot of my kids, and particularly like a lot of places where I worked and there was a lot of black students and there wasn't a lot of black staff. Some kids would leave classrooms, they would run into the hallway. But part of it was like they don't want to have to deal and confront that conversation that they have with this person that they've already deemed in their mind can't relate to them.
But you know what it goes back to? It's all taught behavior, like we talked about earlier. It's like maybe, and I can attest to what whoever your client is talking about. Maybe, and we don't know what that person went through in his household to where that was his escape. That was that's all he knew. You know, maybe dad was beating up mom. So how do I not hear that and deal with that? I go outside and dribble my basketball. Right. You know what I mean? It could be little small things like that. Or for me, it was like one of my biggest fears was like growing up in Oakland. Obviously, we know Oakland isn't the safest city. I'm losing friends at a very young age, family members at a very young age. So my biggest thing was, okay, I don't want to put myself in positions to where I can put my mom through that. And I kept bumping my head and got all the way up until my freshman year of college. I'm home visiting. I'm home. Well, actually, a week before I left to go to college, the car I was in got shot up. Right? Exactly. I leave that following Thursday. This is August 6th. I leave August 13th to go to college as a freshman. Division I scholarship, everything. August 6th, the car I'm in gets shot up. Luckily, nobody gets hit. So I have my going away barbecue Saturday. Everything's cool, whatever. I come back home and Thanksgiving, I get into some more trouble. This is August, and then Thanksgiving, I get into some more trouble. Lose my driver's license, a whole bunch of shit. Okay, whatever. I go back to school. Christmas break, one of my closest friends I'm with him. He gets shot. So this is all a 3-4 month span. So now I'm to the point to where it's like, okay, it's a little bit of survivor's remorse at the same time, because I'm leaving my family and friends in Oakland where they're dealing with, you know, what I was a part of, and now I'm out here living a life to where I don't have to look over my shoulder anymore. You feel me? And people ask me all the time, like, why do you always got on hoodies? Why? Like, I'm so used to I drive with a hood on. You know, my ex used to hate that. Like, my mom hates it because they, you know, mistaken identity, obviously dealing with the cops and all that. But for me, it was a safety thing, because I didn't know who my friends. I would be out of town. Whatever happened over the weekend, I come back, I'm hanging out with my friends. They didn't jump somebody over the week, you know, and I don't even be knowing what's going on. So it's just all those little things. Basketball was my escape. You see what I'm saying? I felt like it saved my life. I mean, I lost countless of friends. So,
So do you feel like sports helped you manage your mood, and that you're still kind of like learning how to process that?
No, my son. I tell people all the time, if my son never wants to play a sport, I would love that.
Okay.
Because it was a temporary fix for a permanent problem, in my opinion. It was a coping mechanism. It's like, okay, instead of dealing with this, I'm gonna go hoop. I get into it with my girl, I'm gonna go hoop. So now I come home, I'm in a better mood, I'm cool, but that problem was never talked about. You see what I'm saying? So though it did keep me mentally sane, I don't think it was a good coping mechanism.
And I don't know if this is true for you, Justin. I would love to ask, do you feel like when you played, because you were trying to potentially like use that to manage something else, that those emotions got magnified when you played? So when you got mad when you were playing, do you feel like you got madder because
I was always good. I was so used to suppressing my emotions that I was always good at hiding them. You feel me? Because again, the reason why I have this connection with basketball, and I don't even watch basketball. I don't watch games. It's basketball was the only place at a young age where I could be myself. You know what I mean? Growing up where I grew up, if I was to speak the way I speak now, if I was to say what really was on my mind, everybody looked at me like I was weird. So it was a little bit of fitting in. It goes back. I don't want to say I was trying to fit in, because I was still naturally being myself, but it was more so people pleasing. You know what I mean? Like, but when it comes to basketball, I can really exercise my brain and try to figure out, like, that's why I can coach, you know, as humbly I can say. That's why, again, I don't watch basketball for entertainment. If we turn on a hoop game right now, I'm gonna be picking apart the smallest shit. And for somebody who's watching it for entertainment, it's annoying.
Right.
So I just choose not to watch this shit. You see what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't think this is. I've never thought of this like this. So you guys are catching me like trying to process this on the fly.
Well, I only ask that because for me, I can recognize that when I would play, even though I was trying to escape, because I was trying to escape, it only magnified the frustration that I had when things didn't go right.
Let me put it in perspective for you. So let's say you're dealing with a partner, right? Or somebody you're dealing with somebody, and you're somebody who's healing and more self-aware than them, right? So naturally, those conversations are going to be like this, because you're taking it from this standpoint. They might feel attacked. And I think I mentioned this earlier. I felt the same way as a basketball player, because I would be trying to explain why you should play defense this way to my teammates or my coaches or whatever, and they wouldn't see it. And it's like, I get what you're saying, but there's another way to do that. And it's just people are so locked into one perspective that it made me hate basketball. Like, I didn't want to be a part of it, because like, bro, this is all who you know. This is all. It's like this dude can't even dribble with his left hand, but he's the MVP because he's the leading scorer.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's
because all he does is go right.
Yeah, but those little. It just I learned that about myself. Like, once I lose respect for something or someone, it's hard for me to gain that back. Very, very hard. And I try to work on that, but it's just always that thing in the back of my head was just like, bro,
No, I think that's the powerful share. So, what are some takeaways you want to share for the sake of us coming to a closing on your healing journey that you've learned thus far?
I would say, I feel like I've been giving takeaways this whole time, but I would say for the most part, it's just realizing that, you know, the first step is just being honest with yourself. Like in order to get to the person you want to be, like there's easy to just make you know, write out the exact man you want to be one day, right? And then you just have to figure out the steps it takes to get to that point. And I think that's what I'm doing. I'm just knocking them down one step at a time. Like one of my biggest goals for 2022 is to get a financial advisor. You know what I mean? How to be better with money. And it's like, yeah, I make decent money. I'm okay, but I know I could be better. You know what I mean? So it's just those little small things that we push off to the wayside that will result in contentment and just stagnation, just because it's the norm. You're so used to it. So it's like, okay, fuck it, I'm just going. That's just how I am. That's just how I am. But it's like, no, I want to be better. So making that conscious effort to be better and realizing there's so many things that I have to change within myself. And in turn, what that does is it makes other people more confident and believing in you and hearing what you have to say. Like me doing podcasts, nobody would want to hear what I got to say if my podcast wasn't growing like it was. You know what I mean? It's just being able to show and tell, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
That's a wrap?
Yes,
Yeah.
a wrap.
All right. I appreciate you guys.
Make sure y'all subscribe.
Yep.